Right, so this is a 2009 Hyosung GT650R, and I am going to give you an honest review and my opinion of this motorcycle. You get some people doing reviews of bikes and they're just either really biased against it or really for it, whether they're getting paid or whether they just had a bad experience on them, things like that. I'm going to give an entirely honest review on this, okay? So starting off with the first thing that anyone says about any motorcycle is, what engine does it have? This motorcycle comes with a 650cc. I don't know the exact cc because they're never exact, but I know it's roughly around 650. It has 72 horsepower stock. It's got a 6-speed transmission. We've got a dual overhead cam on each cylinder, and it's a V-twin 90-degree. The engine itself is liquid cooled and fuel injected. I know that when I was looking at the bike things in Hyosung, I saw the GT250 and the GT125, saw they were carbureted and air cooled. So as soon as I saw this bike, I was disinterested, since maintenance with carburetors is a bit awful, and then air cooled they can overheat quickly, especially a 650 that's air cooled. But then when I did my research into it, came across they are actually liquid cooled. The way you check the oil, you've got oil here, you've got a little window down there. Something that I'm not actually that happy about. The window itself, you need to get your phone to, because it's so dark. I mean, you could cut here, get a better view, but you just ruin the look of the bike. And as far as the headlight goes, I'd say it's pretty bright. You've got your low beam, this is your high beam, you've got your passing light as well. I think they're halogen LEDs, so of course they're not the most modern thing in the world, but they are pretty good nonetheless. Now moving on to the brakes. On the front wheel comes with a dual piston, dual disc front brake. It's really snatchy, really nice. I've got absolutely no complaints about this, and it's quite large. I don't know the exact diameter. A lot of people who do these reviews, they actually look into it, do their research. I can't be bothered with all that, okay? So you've got two front discs and they work. Moving over to the dashboard side of things, it's a very Suzuki-like style, since a bit of history about Hyosung is they make Suzuki engines. So the engine inside this is exactly the same to a Suzuki SV650, and they're licensed to make sport bikes by Suzuki that are sort of knockoffs in a way. You turn it on. A lot of people don't like this older dash, but I am quite a fan of it. And you've got all of this here. You've got your fuel gauge, your temperature gauge. You can change your, whether it's kilometers an hour or miles an hour with one of these buttons. I don't really mess with them. Your kilometers, the time, it's not exactly accurate. This is about half an hour fast, and I just cannot be bothered to change it. As you can see, it revs up to 10,000, 11,000 RPM. Now let's talk ergonomics of the motorcycle. The actual ergonomics of this thing are all right for the driver. Once you're on it, this is your riding position the entire time. But the problem isn't there. The problem is with the passenger. This is what it's like with the passenger. As you can see, when the passenger's upright, it's all right. As soon as you're driving along and the passenger's holding on to you, or they've got their hand on the fuel tank, it's not as comfortable. As you can see, very bent over. So that could be a problem further down the way. Now let's move on to the exhaust sound of the motorcycle. Now this is the stock exhaust on the bike. It's not an aftermarket of any sort, but nonetheless it does still sound very nice. Now we'll talk about some of the problems that I've had with this bike along the way. First problem I had with it was the steering. The steering doesn't turn very well, but I'll get to that part. Second problem I ever had with it was after I'd driven it from Cordoba, which if you don't know where that is, look on a map. Cordoba all the way down to Gibraltar. It's about a 3-hour drive if you do the right way, okay? Now, this one made it all the way perfectly fine, but the next day in Gibraltar, regulator went. Yeah, this is why I have this really ugly regulator, which is getting a bit of corrosion since we live in a saltwater environment. It's not exactly the most expensive one in the world. Other than that, I haven't really had any problems with it. There was a woman that reversed into my bike and broke the front left indicator. So it explains all this scratching here, and there's a bit more damage on the other side. But that's, you know, for another time where I'll work on it and fix those things. Some people are just dicks like that, you know? They like, oh, let's reverse out of this space. Bang, hit a motorcycle. Tried driving away. Sees me come out the house. Oh, fuck, I've got to stay now. Sorted it out, but you know, people are just stupid. You've got to park your bike somewhere that is idiot proof, which is really difficult in a world full of idiots. But what can you do about it? So as you can see, I was turning as tight as I possibly could there, but one of the design faults to it is it doesn't turn very well. Slalom wise, it's alright, but it's a bit of a heavy bike. The bike weighs 196 kilograms. It does not turn very well. On a straight line, however, it's one of the best I've ever had. So if we take a look at the dashboard again, the reason the bike won't turn very well is you turn it this much, and my thumb is touching on here already. You go just that little bit more, it just cannot. The bike can physically turn a little bit more, but my knuckles have to get underneath it so I can do this, by which you can't at the same time. The other way, same story, but still that's just how it is. And therefore your turning circle is about that much. Now let's talk top speed on a motorcycle like this. A V-twin 650, you know, should have a lot of torque, a lot of horsepower, a lot of mid-range power, and for legal reasons, this thing does the speed limit. Okay, it doesn't do any more. I'm just gonna say that now. I'll put a clip of me doing 30 miles per hour. Not slowed down or anything like that. It's 30 miles per hour, definitely. And so yeah, I think I've gone over pretty much everything to do with this motorcycle. We've gone over the engine, problems I've had with it, the steering, headlight, brakes, sound. A lot of the other things people mention, like, oh, how many teeth the sprocket have. Who gives a shit? The fairings are a little bit scratched. Yes, it's liquid cooled and fuel injected. 17-litre fuel tank, and yeah, got 2 wheels. Anyways, tell me what you think of this motorcycle, and if you do have Hyosung, this is not a dig at this bike. In fact, it is a compliment. Every bike has its own issues and little pet peeves here and there, but all in all, it's a cracking bike and you can get them really cheap. I say really cheap, but those of you that are on minimum wage who are enthusiastic about motorcycles like me, it takes a while to save up for a bike like this, but in the grand scheme of things, this has 15,000 kilometers on it. And when I bought it, it had 13,000. Got it for €1,750. Can't really beat a price like that, can you, for a 650?